I've been at the bottom. I felt that I was at the bottom, the worst I could ever possibly feel, and nothing was ever going to get better. People say it all the time, things will get better, but they don't understand. They never felt this despair. They never felt that low. I felt it, and I'm telling you, there is a solution. There is something that is going to change in your life. Right now, it doesn't look promising, but there is a future. If I actually completed and did die by suicide, I wouldn't be here today, and I wouldn't have the opportunities that I have. I was mandated to go to therapy, something that I've never done before. And so because of that, it changed my life. There was a solution. I found myself. I think that's the best that I could put it. I found myself. I found who I wanted to be. I was able to understand myself better, so I would be better able to understand others.
Hey guys, it is Allison. I am the host of your show, Allison Answers Mission Awake. I cannot wait to sit down with you today and go over how we are going to crush the mediocrity in your life that has been plaguing our society since the beginning of time. I cannot wait to have a real deal conversation that includes intelligence, fun, excitement, and real actionable steps to make a real difference in the life that you're living now and making it into something you can be damn proud of and excited to live. Sit down, put on your damn seatbelt, and get ready for the ride of your life. Hey guys, how are you today? It is Allison from Allison Answers and Lager Counseling Services. I have a request. We are not going to go any further with our wonderful guest until I ask you a favor. Would everybody please like, subscribe, and share this episode if you feel like it's of help to you or someone else. I'm not looking to monetize my podcast. I do not do that. But it does help me a great deal if you would subscribe to YouTube under Allison Answers Mission Awake. And the reason being is that it gives me an opportunity to have unbelievable guests, and it gives me an opportunity to do actual media things on YouTube. This podcast is top 3% globally, and no one really knows it because the subscriber level on YouTube is low. So I'm just asking if you enjoy the podcast. My only request from you, I don't have any paid ads. I don't do anything to receive any type of money for this. It's only to help people. So if you could help me by liking, subscribing, checking me out on Instagram, Allison Answers, Lager Counseling on Instagram, and following us, it would be really so helpful. So my guest today is Emily Nicolich. And Emily is a very special guest. And the main reason that she's so special is she's an employee at Lager Counseling Services. But the thing about her, I'm going to give you her titles. She's a placement coordinator, and she's also an office coordinator, and she is currently moving right now into a therapeutic internship where she will be an acting therapist at Lager Counseling Services. We don't take that lightly. When we have somebody come in to work with us, we really vet pretty hard, and we try to find people who have overcome things in their life so that they are also able to help other people. They also have to be down to earth. They have to be insightful. They have to care and align with our core values and be driven in the mission to change the face of mental health to being something pretty powerful across the world. And that we believe that we can do that together. So what I'd like to do is introduce you to Emily, and we're gonna listen to her, and I want to showcase her. I would like you to hear what she's like as a therapist, and how she came to be who she is, and how she came to come into this field. So, Emily, welcome to Allison Answers, and I'm so happy you're here. I've known you for a long time, and you're a very, very special, interesting person, and I know. I'm not just saying this because you're a guest. I just know that you're going to help so many people, and you already have. So tell us what made you even consider this field, and what makes you choose Logger Counseling Services.
Okay. Well, thank you for saying that, and thank you for having me here today. So, in regards to why I chose this field, I actually, when I was younger, I was choosing a completely different route, but I had my own struggles. I've seen loved ones have their own struggles, especially in the realm of suicide, that really was insightful for me. As an individual, as a person, and growing into who I wanted to be, I wanted to help those who were struggling with mental illness, and I wanted to be able to help families who also have somebody in their lives who are suffering.
Yeah. So like what did you have to overcome like personally if you're comfortable with sharing it?
Yeah. So I typically am very open about my experience in mental health, my own struggles. When I was around 15 years old was where it kind of really declined for me. I would say I suffered mentally for quite some time before then, just with a lot of changes in my personal life and a lot of adjusting. So once I was 15, I don't know if it was necessarily considered a depression. I don't know. But as a young teenage girl, you deal with a lot. There's a lot of change. There's a lot of adjusting. There's a lot of hormones. There's a lot of things that are all kind of contributing to you as a person and who you're growing to be. So for me, I struggled a lot with a lot of external things as well as internal things. It really did get to a point where I was at the lowest of my lows. And I turned to an attempt of suicide as my means of kind of letting everything go and just not having a solution at the time.
Yeah.
But with everything that I went through then, I was hospitalized for a little bit. I was mandated to go to therapy, something that I've never done before. And so because of that, it changed my life.
Mm.
I found that there was a solution. I found myself. I think that's the best that I could put it. I found myself. I found who I wanted to be. I was able to understand myself better, so I would be better able to understand others. And that put a lot of things into perspective for me, for my relationships, and just going forward with my life, that not everything is so permanent and there is some solution at the end of the day, even when it feels like everything's working against you.
I love what you're saying. It's really very profound. So in regard to when, and this is, I want to really highlight, if anyone knows, like, a teenager, we see this a lot, teenagers, young middle schoolers, it's for boys and girls. And we see just a lot of self-esteem issues. So much it's such a hard time of life. And then if you take a teenager who also has maybe parents are getting a divorce, or maybe there's some struggles in the family, or there's strife between parent and child. And then you have a young, either a teenager or a middle schooler, and they're at the point where they don't see that there's a solution. What happens is they also don't have the evidence in their life because of the length of time that they've been a teenager. I used to say that to my daughter when she was like 13 or 14, and she'd be so like upset over things. And I'd say, I just want you to understand, just think about it for a minute. How long have you been a teenager? And she'd be like, what? And it was like a revelation to her. I go, listen, you haven't had a lot of time to practice this, so it's not easy. And to validate a teenager and explain to them, this is not an easy time. Instead of saying, shape up, get your shit together, a lot of parents just want them to not feel bad because they're frightened. And then the parents are reacting to the kids' heightened emotional state. So back to what I would say to her, I'd say, think about it. How long would you say you're a kid? And she'd be like, I said, what age around does that end? She's like, 11. I'm like, so if you really look at it, you've only had 2 years in comparison to 11. You spent 11 years as a baby, toddler, and child. You have a lot of time with that. Now you have a very short time trying to figure out what feels like you're going to be an adult. So like, and then the thing about that, backing up to what I'm saying, is that they have no evidence of things, they don't have experience of things working out, going through a really hard time, and then, oh, this gets better. Oh, that gets better. The longer you live, you see that things work out. that not everything has no solution. We believe at Logger Counseling Services that there is always a solution. So, and even if you don't have it now, you just haven't found it, but there is always a solution. So back to Emily, and what Emily is saying is, so Emily, for you, you're 15 years old, life feels like there isn't hope. That's what it sounds like to me, like hope deferred makes the heart grow sick. So what was the moment? What were the feelings prior to you making the decision did you decide to die?
I think I remember it.
Mhm.
I was in one of my old houses, and I just I don't think there was much thought. It was just, well, one, it's a lot about, like you said before, about validation. There's a lot of invalidation, I feel like, for teenagers, just of like what they perceive as big issues to their life and what's disrupting their life. So the lack of validation for me was very, very impactful. And it definitely had a drive in this decision. I wanted to die. I wanted to stop worrying about everything that was going on externally, whether it was in regards to friends, in regards to school, in regards to family, just anything along the lines of that. It was just so much at once. And it seemed like nobody heard me and nobody understood me. And it got to a point where I didn't want to have that burden. I didn't want to be sad. I didn't want to feel invalidated. I didn't want to continue with the life that I was living, because after I tried so many times, I felt, well, what it felt like, I tried so many times to change certain outcomes and to change just in general as a person, and it just felt like the universe was working against me and nothing was going the way that I wanted it to. So I was, at that point, I didn't see that solution, and my decision there was to die. That's what I wanted.
And I'm highlighting these parts because I think that even if we can help one teenager, one parent in this kind of situation, the best way to help a child is to help a parent. So, and help the parent to be able to have better insight of how to handle something like that. So, a parent in a situation like that, if you hear Emily, she said, I didn't feel validated. And it's natural. I mean, I'm a mom of 4 grown kids, so I understand that. So, well, as a mom, it's very natural to feel like, oh, I just got to get my kid feeling better. And in an attempt to do that, parents very, very often invalidate. It's just a fact. So this is a podcast is not about blaming parents or making them, feel bad about themselves. What it means is that what we need to do as parents is to put aside our own fear, our own reaction to our child's pain, and to allow the child to explain what it is and to listen with the only intent is to understand them and not stop the feeling. Because we believe that if we hear the feeling and if we let the child say the feeling, that the feeling will get bigger, but it's the exact opposite. If you hear the feeling, let them have the feeling, even if it sounds crazy, which it probably will, because their life feels too big for them, which is natural because now they're in a role that they don't understand. They haven't had a lot of experience in it yet. So now, and everything is tremendous at this age. So the parents, it's really important that if you have to chew your arm off, go in another room, whatever the hell you have to do, just listen without teaching, correcting, telling them what they should or shouldn't think or feel or do, and just say, tell me what it's like. And then say, wow, you know what? I could understand how that feels hard for you. It is hard at this age. I would really want you to know. So, and like that right there is a healing point. And also, when you can help a child or a teenager or any human being understand that there's more to life than where they are now, that things always work out, problems can be solved, even if we feel like we can't. So back to Emily and what Emily was experiencing. So at that point where I've had that moment in my life too. I didn't make a suicide attempt, but I made a decision to do it. And and I didn't have a plan, but the making of a decision in any area of our life is an interesting power. But to make the decision as a solution brings relief. So I don't know if you experience that, but it's like, oh, okay, just knowing that there's some end, there's some solution, although it sounds really unstable, and it is, but when someone feels that desperate, finally they feel like they have some way out. So do you want to speak on that?
I would say yes. I
Mhm.
think what you're saying, I don't remember exactly if I felt that relief. I know after the fact, being in the hospital and seeing how this kind of event impacted other people. I had family members staying with me in the hospital. I had friends who were so close to me that maybe at the time I feel like I remember there was a certain or some friends that maybe there were rough patches in the relationship, which was a contributing factor. Even they would come and see me and visit me there. So just seeing that, I guess, kind of showed the impact that I had on other people. And so seeing me in this state impacted them. And after that, a lot of people came to me and they said, "We're going to help you. We're going to help you. We're going to solve it. We're going to fix it. We're going to work on it." So once after that, I think the biggest thing that I did, my dad had found me a therapist. He found me a great therapist. It was probably the best person that I could have gone to. She changed my life. 110%. But that plan in
Does she
itself,
want a job?
she has her own
Ah,
practice.
yeah, okay.
So how would that? But
No, it's fine.
yeah, so my dad just kind of like having that plan and just like having all my loved ones, like my mom, I had my sisters, I had people that were there to want to be there and to help me with it and work through it. So I think that that provided my relief entirely after the fact.
I hear that story so many times from teenagers, kids, or even people a little bit older who have made an attempt, a suicide attempt, and then they are hospitalized as an emergency. And it's not typically a very pleasant experience. And it really, I've seen so many people not want to die anymore because of the response of different people and because of they see a lot by being there. So the thing, and I love that you shared that because what would you say to really anyone? Let's stay with the teenagers for a moment. What would you say to the parents of teenagers who are having a lot of trouble with their teenager? Were your parents having problems with you? Was there arguing and stuff like that?
I don't think there was really any like necessarily like arguing with me specifically. I
Hmm.
just think that a lot of it was normal between child and parent. Like you're not going to agree on everything. You're like as a child, you're not going to like some rules that are in place. There's going to spark some sort of argument there. I think that the biggest thing for me was in regards to being a child of divorce,
Mm,
having
yes.
mainly between each other. But yeah, I would say that that was probably
Well,
very
that's an important conversation too. So, just a little slight segue about that particular age. So, someone in middle school or even high school too, up to a certain age, they're individuating, and it's part of their development. And if they don't individuate, it's a problem. So they're learning how to, I mean, and if we as parents or people around them, a lot of times kids, the way that they individuate is if they can't be or try on different identities, try on different ideas, or just do whatever, do different things, and their parents are correcting them, telling them not to do it, trying to control them, trying to keep them in line and not allowing them to branch out and even just be weird or do silly things, whatever, then that's sometimes when a child will rebel. So people will call teenagers rebellious, but what they're really doing is separating and becoming autonomous in some way so they can develop a separate identity from their family and with an outside group. So in order to do that, they really find friends like to be such a primary important part of their life. So then, and think about it, the relationships there are all immature. So I would tell my daughter, I'd be like, of course of course people are not going to get along, and of course people are going to say things they don't mean because they're not mature. The pool you're swimming in is just not the best pool for a little while, so it's just a bunch of immature people trying to figure out how to have good relationships and making tons of mistakes, so it's like even having a conversation with a kid like that and explain, listen, this is kind of just the way this is how everybody's learning. Don't take it to heart. It's not always going to be this way. But so back to what you were saying, there is no shortage, obviously we all know, of divorce. There's no shortage of kids, teenagers, all different ages, experiencing divorce and how hard it is on them. So what would you say to divorcing parents or divorced parents that could help them help their child? We have so many people come in to Lager Counseling Services with kids of all different ages. And they're like, please help this child, this teenager. They're having all these problems. And then through working with the child, we always find out other things. So very often there's divorce happening, and the strife between the parents feels like the child's burden, and they feel like they have to choose between each one. And parents, I had one client say to me, it's so sad. They said, my parents hate one another more than they love me. And I think parents in general are in so much pain and strife and anger. They're not realizing, they don't know that they're doing that, but that's how kids are experiencing it. Kids feel in the middle, and parents will be like, well, we're not doing that. They feel it, whether you're doing it or not. So away with Emily. Emily, what would you say to divorcing parents, or, what would you say about that?
I think that the most important thing in regards to divorce, and if you have children, is that the children are always coming first. It's not about who did what, who does what, who's going to do what between the parents. It's more about what's in the best interest of the children. How do the children feel about this? Are the children being heard? Are they letting their emotions out about how they feel about this adjustment? Because for the most part, I mean, my experience specifically, we stayed with my mom, and my dad was moved out of the house, and that was an adjustment in itself as a young kid to kind of understand and even see that with my sisters as well. They were younger than me, so they had, I don't want to speak on their experience, but I think that they had a little bit of trouble in a sense of kind of understanding like that this is the new dynamic now, and mom and dad are not together. Mom and dad are going to see other people. But I think that having the parents be able to have those open conversations with their child, see how they're feeling, what is fearful to them, what are they scared of in regards to this separation. I think knowing that as a parent is going to be so insightful and build your relationship with your child to confide in you and to talk to you through the entire transition, because as it's a transition for them, it's also a transition for the parent themselves to try to navigate through. But if you have that relationship where you can talk to one another openly without, like you said earlier, without it being, you have to choose a side, we're not together anymore, pick one of the sides. That's a lot of children feel that. And
Oh,
they
they do.
shouldn't. They shouldn't. And
Yeah.
that's a burden that a lot of children face.
Mhm.
So I think just co-parenting, definitely learning how to co-parent. Co-parenting is the biggest contributor to, I think, how children are impacted by divorce, because if you don't know how to co-parent, the child's not going to be able to accept this transition and really not feel good about it, but I guess in a sense, feel better than probably what they're going to feel,
Yeah.
actually.
There's so many. I'm an adult child of a divorce as well, and I had the very, very unique experience. So unique. It's actually, people thought it was weird. My mother and father like just stayed friends. They were, and like literally, like, and my dad remarried. His wife was like my mom's best friend. We all did all our holidays together. It was just the most natural thing in the world. I am still, and I loved my stepmother like a mother. And she was my hardest loss. I lost all of my parents, they all died, but she was the biggest loss of my life. And a big part of it, and what I ended up getting from this divorce, first of all, I never felt like much, I didn't feel much strife. And what I had the opportunity to see was my dad and my stepmom being so madly in love with one another that it heightened my bar to what actual love could be, which led me into really loving my late husband so much because it felt so similar to that kind of a love. Like they just admired one another and it was just really cool. But you back to like kids in that situation. So part of that situation also is you feel like, I mean, I know I did, even though it was that harmonious situation, I always felt like there was something wrong with me. Some like deep embedded shame, like I don't really have that family, you know? And when you think about the kids, right? So now you were describing parents like getting, co-parenting. Some parents just can't and won't. They hate one another so much. There's divorce, there's attorneys involved, and the kids are literally, I just want to bring something else up. Some parents, if they believe that one of the parents is talking badly about them, then when they see the child, they can't help but have the perception that the child feels the same way about them that their ex does. So they start interacting with the child differently, defensively. And each one wants the other one to know that they're not the villain. And it is so harmful. So just to throw in the psychology of the gender. So a female whose dad is talking badly about the mom feels like as if the dad is talking badly about her. And a boy whose mom is talking badly about the dad somehow unconsciously feels bad about himself and his masculinity in himself. So it's very, very, and I'm going to say one more thing because I've just seen so many kids struggling. The thing that makes me almost cry, it's the hardest thing that I ever, because I've had to be in like divorce cases and, testify on, in court battles. It's just horrifying. But when you see people fighting over their kids and they're insisting on 50-50, I want people to remember that when you split your kids in half, 50-50, and it's about winning a battle instead of what's best for the child, that what ends up happening is that each time, especially young children, no matter which home they're in, they're always missing someone. I've had little kids tell me they're never not missing a parent, ever. So they go to one house, they miss their other house, so they miss their other parent. And a lot of times parents won't let the kids talk to the other parent because it's their time. That's really about you. I'm going to be direct. I mean, it's about you. If your child's upset and needs their mom or they need their dad and you don't let them have that experience because you feel because of pride, because you want to keep your time, it's just wrong. I mean, I don't ever say anything like that's on here, but I feel really strongly about that. I've seen so many kids torn apart because of that. I'm almost crying. But anyhow, I just care about the way kids are treated so much. So anyhow, back to you, Emily. So describe for us how your life and your experiences, I know you've had experiences, that have been very tragic in your life besides this. Describe for us how these things have been an education for you in being a therapist, being able to understand people and help people.
Yeah.
Hey, guys, how are you? Isn't that amazing? This story that we're hearing on this show is great. I want to just give a shameless plug of my book. I would really want people to have a good look at my book and to understand what it really is. I used to be ashamed to plug my book. And then I realized, how is that right to keep the information, the 30 years of experience that I have, the 8 years of education, the trauma that I grew out of and learned how to manage and how to manage emotion, all the training I've had in neuroscience and quantum physics. How can I keep that from the public? So it's not, I used to think it was like something I should, be humble about, but being humble is silly when you're keeping things away from people that they need. So what I want to tell you about my book, and I hope that you do get it, because I think it will really help you. I've gotten a lot of tremendous feedback about my book, and that it's really, really of great value to a lot of people. And what it is, it's an interactive read, and there's inside of it, there's journal entries. So as I'm teaching and going through the book and teaching you how to create the life you want by understanding how you're wired, how your thoughts, feelings, how your words, how thoughts are things, and the neuroscience behind it, and how we are programmed from the time we're 0 to 7 years old to live a life of mediocrity or a life of poor design because of meaning that we attached to events when we were children that just became our programming. What I want to tell you is that there is a way out, and it's a simple way. It's very simple. I believe in the simplicity and the grace in healing, and that it doesn't have to be a big work. So I would love it if you'd get my book. It's a best-selling book on Amazon, and it's my first. And I encourage you to get it. It's called The Wake Up Call, an interactive read for building the life you want. I don't think you'll be disappointed. Thanks so much for being on the show, and let's get back to it.
So I think that because, like you said, there have been tragedies in my life, and a lot of the time, not that I forget it, but I think that I don't think of it that way because it's something that I've overcome. It's something that has made me grow as a human being. But you're right. It is good to acknowledge that a lot of the things that have happened in my life, they're tragic. And I've lost loved ones to suicide. I've seen attempts by others to suicide. I've seen a lot of that in my life. I've seen a lot of mental struggles in others surrounding me in my life. I've seen a lot of things that I probably shouldn't have been exposed to growing up. But again, that's made me who I am as a person. I'm better. I feel like the biggest thing about being a therapist is learning to understand yourself before you could ever understand anybody else and what they're feeling and what they're going through. So having that personal experience, having that those tragedies happen and just seeing it and growing from it and trying to find the solution, like you say, like we're all about finding the solution and having that in our back pocket because there is always going to be some sort of solution. It's so important because in order for you to grow as an individual, you need to be able to help others recognize it too, that there is going to be something that they can do at the end of the day. And so what for me as a therapist, I would love to work with people that have felt so low and suicide has crossed their mind, or they know that there's a family member of theirs or a loved one or just a friend, anybody that is suffering with mental issues and struggles, and they know that there's suicide in their lives or in their thoughts too. I think that it impacts way more people than just the person feeling that way. Suicide is such a real thing, and I think that a lot of the population, they hear stories about it all the time, but it's just like, wow, that's so sad. That never happened to them. They don't truly understand it. They don't. And so I think the biggest thing is that it needs to be recognized that it is real. It can happen. It can happen to anyone where they feel that low and nobody ever even knew.
Yeah.
So it's just a very important thing to not like tread lightly about. I think as a therapist, that's something that is super important to always consider.
Yeah. And the thing about you having these experiences at such a young age, people will call into Lager counseling services and they're like, well, we don't want a young person. And we honor that. We match people to the right people for them and who they feel like they'd be most comfortable with. But in quite a few situations, we'll hire someone who has more education than anyone who has 20 years of education in school. So, because the real education often, as long as the person works through it, Emily said some very key points. She said that You have to understand yourself. And that's a person who did the exploration and the healing themselves to really understand how these tragedies, this trauma, has how they can take that and utilize it instead of having it utilize you. So what you want is you want to take that bitch, change your life with it because it's a gift only if you take it in that way. If you say, you know what, I'm not going to let you take me down. I'm going to take you and rise myself up. And that's what Emily has done and continues to do. And it makes her a resilient person. The thing about Emily and someone who's overcome, death by suicide and all of that, and I'm that too. I'm a person who's experienced that in my own life. So when you have had different experiences and overcome them or continue to overcome them on a daily basis, choose life, what ends up happening is you have an understanding of that dark place. So when a client comes in, or any person it doesn't have to be a client, any person, you understand the land they're in. You have no problem walking in, sitting in that land. I always picture myself with a stake. I'm like, okay, I'm coming in the land with you. I'm planting my stake. I own this land now. I'm in charge. I own this land with you. Now, I don't say that to a client, but now I'm here with you. And this land has no power over me because I've overcome it. Now I'm going to sit with you, and eventually we're going to walk out of this land together. And it's not going to have the power over you anymore either. And so that's what Emily has, and also I think you would be really unbelievable with helping parents to understand a child, especially divorcing parents. I never even thought of that, but from this conversation I have, it's like, I feel like I'm interviewing you, but that's not what I'm doing. So anyhow, well, I am interviewing you. So what would you say to a person right now today? And I do pray that this podcast gets to someone. I don't care if it's one person, gets to someone who doesn't have hope anymore today. And to anyone who knows someone like that, I want to say a couple of things. If you know somebody who doesn't have hope, one of the things that can raise the risk of suicide is if the person has any potential for being impulsive. Teenagers, kids can be impulsive because they don't see future, they don't understand, and they don't have the experience. And they can be impulsive because of what's happening neurologically. So that's one that raises the risk. Then the other thing is if somebody does use drugs or alcohol, that raises the risk at least 90%. Because then they don't have the judgment to not commit the act. So now, with that in mind, what would you say to someone who has no hope today, who has contemplated, has had suicidal ideation? And what that means is suicidal thoughts. Doesn't mean a person's going to do it if they have thoughts. But what we do is we assess them for suicidal ideation, plan, and intent. So if somebody has suicidal thoughts, that's where we start first. They have suicidal thoughts. Then we ask what the thoughts are. And let's say it says a certain way they're going to do it. Then we ask what the plan, if they have a plan. If they don't have a plan, the risk is not as high, but it's not that it's not a risk, but it's not as high. And do they have an intent? That means, do they plan to do it? People don't want to ask people, do you plan to die today? Do you want to hurt yourself today? Because people are afraid to say it because they think it's going to make people hurt themselves. And that is a myth. It's not true. You directly ask someone, how can I help you today? You're not alone. If somebody is telling you that they have a plan, they have intent, all other things go out the window, you do everything you can to keep them alive. So what I want to say about this, I started Emily's question, but I just feel very passionate about letting people know if somebody's suffering, what to do. So then the other thing is that if you're a family member and you have lost someone to suicide, or it doesn't have to be family, it could be anyone, someone that's important to you, you lost someone to died by suicide, I want you to understand one thing. There's a lot of talk, there's a lot of stigma, and there's a lot of people who say, that death by suicide is it's a coward's way out. I hear things like that. It's selfish. You know, it's incredible. People can be like, they're not going to heaven. Like, that really can be cruel. The truth is that when someone does die by suicide, they do, unfortunately, all the pain that they're experiencing in that moment, they do pass that on to everyone who loves them. That is a fact. But typically, people who die by suicide are not selfish. They are also not cowards. Because if you really think about it, somebody doing something like that has to be somebody who's so broken that they're not afraid anymore. They're just doing this thing. So the other thing about it is that there's neurologically, we do understand that there's a suicide brain, and it's almost as if it's like a takeover. So their mind can become so toxic through negative thoughts that they have somehow been convinced in their mind that the entire world is better off without them. If they thought, now this is not every case, but most people who end up not committing, or I don't want to say committing, most people who end up not choosing to die, it's because they looked up at a clock and they're like, oh, my kids are going to come home from school. What am I doing? These are the things that stop people. So I want you to understand that it's like very often it's the biggest lie that a person is told when they're in that suicide mind, the takeover. It's the biggest lie is that everyone is better. You're helping other people by you're such a burden that everyone's better off without you. And so just remember that when you're dealing with people. So what would you say, Emily, to a person who right now has no hope, maybe they're even contemplating suicide? What would you say?
Well, from an experience, my own personal experience, I would say that a lot of the time words didn't mean much to me. Like it was like, oh, it'll get better. Then tomorrow's a new day. It'll pass. Just like words like that. And it's invalidating. I think that the biggest thing to do for somebody that is having these thoughts is to, one, obviously, of course, make sure that they're safe and have some sort of plan and action to make sure that they remain safe, but also kind of dive into why, like, that feeling that they have, validate it, validate everything that they're experiencing about how tough a spot that they're in their life right now, whether it's external forces or it's internal forces that are driving these feelings and of feeling no hope. What about it? What about it is, or what about your life makes you feel that there's no hope? And just, you really want to investigate and you want to kind of find where this person really is, I guess, in a sense, mentally. What are the driving forces? And kind of also grasp on, I guess, certain aspects in regards to like their support system. I think that also talking about that people that are in their lives, if that person doesn't have any, but if the person does, that a lot of people, I feel like, in regards to having suicidal ideations, they'll say, yep, I have these thoughts, I have a plan, but I'm staying because of this person.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to stay, or I'm not going to act because of this job that I have, or just something that's keeping them grounded. And I think that that is initially, that's such a good thing to hold on to and to touch upon with that individual, because what about that relationship with that person is so strong that makes them or puts them at this place where they're torn between which way to go. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Making sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. And like, let's say, yeah, it makes a lot of sense to me. I feel like therapeutically, if you're meeting with someone, you want to find out, help them to see what's at the heart of their despair, right? And also help them to be able to see that there is a future. Like what is it? Because very often people can't see the future. That's another sign. But or they don't believe that they have a future or that it'll be better. But for the person right now who's like listening to this podcast, who's actually maybe even thinking of doing this, like, I want you to say something to them, that person, like pretend they're listening to you right now. What would you tell a person? You can't see them. You're not going to do any therapy with them right now. What would you tell them about dying today? No pressure.
Oh, I think again, I think that a lot of people, if you're watching this right now and this is how you're feeling these types of ways, I want to tell you something from me who has experienced certain things myself, and I've had these thoughts. I've been at the bottom. I felt that I was at the bottom, the worst I could ever possibly feel, and nothing was ever going to get better. People say it all the time, things will get better, but they don't understand. They never felt this despair. They never felt that low. I felt it, and I'm telling you, there is a solution. There is something that is going to change in your life. Right now, it doesn't look promising, but there is a future. If I actually completed and did die by suicide, I wouldn't be here today, and I wouldn't have the opportunities that I have today. I wouldn't have the relationships I would have today. And that would have been the biggest tragedy out of all of it.
Yeah.
Because where I am in my life right now, if I thank God, right up there too, for watching over me, because I am so happy, and this is the happiest I've ever been in my entire life. And I think that it's so important to stay and wait for that day to happen to you, because it is so beautiful from looking at it from the outside now.
Mhm.
I
Yes.
it's a beautiful life, and life is so precious. And so many people, I feel like they don't look at it that way. And a lot of
Yeah.
the time it's taken for granted. It is so beautiful. And I just think that people forget that sometimes.
Yeah, it's true. And that was beautiful, Emily. And we used to have a sign, maybe we'll put it up again, on a chalkboard that says, "Don't quit before the miracle happens." And that's basically what Emily is saying, that there's no way to know and no way to believe that things can get better, but they do. And they really do. And it's very easy for us to say. But if you're in a situation right now where you feel just completely hopeless and you feel like that has been a thought that just keeps coming to you, I'm going to ask you to do one thing. Tell someone. If that person that you tell doesn't listen or just doesn't feel validating, tell another person. Tell And you know what? Another thing you can do is that there's a guy, Kevin Hines, he was on my podcast. He attempted suicide. He jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge. And that man miraculously lived. There has never been someone who didn't have like all their bones in their body broken, their vertebrae broken. He had a miraculous rescue, and he speaks all over. And if you reached out to him, he would answer you, because his mission on life is to tell people, I will be there. I don't care, to help people who are at that moment. Because when he was on that bridge, he was crying his eyes out. He was sobbing on the bridge before he was going to die. And he did jump off the bridge. And he said, so sad. And a woman walked up to him, and she started, and she was like smiling and walked up to him, and he was like, "Oh my God, thank you. Somebody sees me. Somebody's going to help me." He wanted someone to help him. And she asked him to take a picture of her. And he was just, so upset. But when he jumped off, he went all the way under. He was in so much physical pain, and he felt like these black things swirling around him. You can listen to the podcast. I had him on, swirling around him. And he never knew what it was. He thought it was sharks, but he felt them. They pushed him up, all the way up into the surface. And at that same exact time, a car was driving by where a woman saw him jump off. Her brother or boyfriend was working as a Coast Guard, was right in that water. She called him, and this Coast Guard got to him at that exact time. And he found out years later, somebody got in touch with him and said, "Oh my God, I never knew what happened to you. I just saw you speaking. You're alive." And the person was a witness, and they said it was sea lions who saved him, that a sea lion saved his life, saw him, pushed him all the way up, and held him up until the Coast Guard got there. And it was all seconds. And genius, like, doctor who is like the top, he doesn't even live in the country, I think. It's a really weird story. By the time he got to the hospital, there happened to be a spinal surgery genius at the hospital who was leaving, and he helped him did surgery on him, saved his life. The guy can walk, run, jump, do everything. This has never happened to somebody who jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge. But he is here to tell people, and he tells everyone, stay, tell someone. So if you are feeling horrible, just look up Kevin Hines. You know, his story is incredible. You can hear him on here, but know that there is always a solution. This guy's married now, you know, and he talks about how to protect yourself from your mind. Our mind can be the most blessed thing, and it can also kill us. So I just want to thank everybody for listening. I want to thank you, Emily. Emily, do you have any like burning desire or something you really want to share with the audience or anything?
I think just one of the last things that I want to say is just because like even that story, God has a plan. I think at the end of the day, there is some sort of plan established for every single person. And I'm happy that I'm here to be able to see that plan through. And it's strengthened my relationship with God. And that's something that keeps me grounded as a person too and helps me grow. So
Yes, that's awesome. So, Emily, thank you so much. And I want to ask anyone who's listening here today, if you know someone, please just pass this on. Just someone who is suffering, even if they're not, you know, suicidal, if they're a person who's just really having a hard time, it's good to hear that they're not alone. And I just want to shout that out to everyone. You know, I'm a therapist. I've been doing this like my whole adult life. I own counseling centers, whatever. Honestly, none of us are immune. We all have our shit. We all have our struggles, trauma, difficulty. The real key is you just got to stay. You got to just ride it out. And it's amazing what happens when you do. I've been in some really dark times that I was just like, couldn't get away from myself. And all I had to do, and I remember saying to myself, you just have to find ways to gain more than you lost. Figure it out each day. Look for the good. Find one, even if it's just, oh, there's a penny on my desk. Yay. You know, it's just like the stupidest little things. And it builds. Just start looking for good. Whatever we look for, we find. So with that being said, that's it. Like, subscribe. It is a wrap. We will talk to you soon. Emily can be found at Lager Counseling Services, but no weirdos, please. No stalking. We don't want that. We're located on Long Island, New York. If you happen to want Emily to be your therapist, yeah, not your girlfriend, but your therapist. I couldn't hold on, you know, because we get some weird shit. But anyhow, so it's true. So yeah. So, and you have someone who needs her kind of help, we'd be more than happy. And we're not trying to solicit clients either. We have plenty. Trust me. Okay. Love you all. See you soon. Thank you, Emily. It's an honor to have you here. Guys, thank you so much for listening to the show. I just want to say to you that we are all together a part of the Mission Awake, a mission that's going to stop the mediocrity that's plaguing all of us. So if you got something here today, I ask that you would be a part of this mission and you'd share it with whoever you can. Take a screenshot of the show and share it on your Instagram. If you are looking for me, you can find me on social media platform Instagram, Allison Answers, or Lager Counseling Services. And give us a review and subscribe if you could to YouTube, Allison Answers. That's where you're going to get a lot of content. I drop stuff every day, goofy stuff, all different kinds of stuff. 5-minute videos that just get you moving in your day. Have a great week. See you next time.